Genesis 23, we'll be reading the entire chapter. Hear the word of the Lord. Sarah lived 127 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died at Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And Abraham rose up from before his dad and said to the Hittites, I am a sojourner and a foreigner among you. Give me property among you for a burying place, that I may bury my dad out of my sight. The Hittites answered Abraham, Hear us, my lord. You are a prince of God among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. None of us will withhold from you his tomb to hinder you from burying your dad. Abraham rose and bowed to the Hittites, the people of the land, and he said to them, If you are willing that I should bury my dad out of my sight, hear me and entreat for me Ephron, the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he owns. It is at the end of his field. For the full price, let him give it to me in your presence as property for a burying place. Now Ephron was sitting among the Hittites, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the Hittites, of all went in at the gate of his city, No, my lord, hear me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it, in the sight of the sons of the people. I give it to you. Bury your dead. Then Abraham bowed down before the people of the land, and he said to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, But if you will, hear me. I give the price of the field. Accept it from me, that I may bury my dead there. Ephron answered Abraham, My lord, listen to me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? Bury your dead. Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out for Ephron the silver that he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver, according to the weights current among the merchants. So the field of Ephron in Machpelah, which was to the east of Mamre, the field with the cave that was in it, and all the trees that were in the field throughout its whole area, was made over to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the Hittites, before all who went in at the gate of the city. After this, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah, east of Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. The field and the cave that were in it were made over to Abraham as property for a burying place by the Hittites. May the Lord add his blessings to the reading of his holy word. Well, do you want it now? Instant rice, instant noodles, instant loans, instant checkout, instant downloads, instant coffee, instant oil change, or at least 5 minutes, supposedly. And of course, instant messaging. We love things being instant because we don't want to have to wait. So businesses often advertise their services as, about how quick they are. Fast food restaurants strive to deliver food to customers as quickly as possible. It seems almost every business realizes you don't like to wait. You want it now. But sometimes you have to wait. Some people understand this and some don't. Some people understand that if you wait, if you can delay gratification, control your impulses to want something now, have your feeling, I gotta have it now, then you'll be better off in the long run. This key quality, deferred gratification, what some experts call temporal discounting, that is not counting the time you have to wait, is a key to success in many areas of life. A lack of this ability, no ability for deferred gratification, is one of the factors that makes for among those who have it, a culture of poverty. People who stay in poverty despite having a fair-paying job over a long period of time are that way, that is poor, because they cannot delay gratification. They can't control their desires for something now. They can't do that for the long-term hope, maybe, of getting something better in the future. So they don't save, they buy whatever they want now, they put it on their credit cards, pay exorbitant interest rates. Psychologist Walter Mischel did an experiment called the marshmallow experiment with a group of young children, like preschoolers, and one by one he got them in a room with a single marshmallow right there in front of them and told them that if they could wait for 15 minutes, they get a second marshmallow and they could eat them both. But if they ate it before the 15 minutes was up, they don't get the second marshmallow. You only get that one. Then he left them there, alone in the room with the marshmallow on hidden camera. Now, some kids could not control themselves and just gobble down the marshmallow right away. Some struggled to resist the temptation, covering their eyes so they don't have to look at the marshmallow, pulling at their pigtails, but finally gave in. But some, about 30%, were able to understand that their delaying gratification was an investment in more pleasure later on. All they had to do was wait. The researchers then tracked each child for about another dozen years. Those who could not wait tended to have more behavioral problems. They struggled in stressful situations. They often had trouble paying attention in school, found it difficult to maintain friendships. On the other hand, those with the ability to wait, who sat there through the 15 minutes so they could get the second marshmallow, they were better adjusted, they were more dependable, they scored better. They scored on average about 210 points higher on the SATs. Being able to wait is a key to success. Genesis chapter 23 is about Abraham's ability to wait, to delay gratification, and put his hope in a reward that goes not just 15 minutes or even a few years later, but beyond his own lifetime. Abraham is the one God is starting all over with after the fall, revealing to him promises that will eventually become the gospel. And he is also a model here of the believer, for a model for us, a model of how to live by faith. He's a model that shows us that sometimes we have to wait. And from Abraham, we see what we're supposed to do while waiting in three parts. First, we weep while we wait. Then we purchase a piece of the promise. And finally, we live legally with land. Well, first, we weep while we wait. At the end of chapter 21, things seem nearly perfect for Abraham. Abraham's name is mentioned 7 times. At the end of chapter 21, that paragraph there, sitting under the shade of his own tamarisk tree, at peace with his neighbors. Kings were coming to him to make treaties with him. He's watching his own son play. Everything seems great. He has indeed received some of the promises now. But then we realize at the beginning of chapter 23 here, he doesn't own a square inch of land. He lives in tents because he can't settle down, temporarily going wherever he goes, one place to another. He's nomadic. He was promised as many descendants as the sand, but he only has that one boy, Isaac. And even though she lived a long time, 127 years, death finally takes Sarah away. And all those lofty promises, confirmed with covenants and signs from God, and now, what does he have to show for it? He has one son and no place to bury his wife. One of the great debates among Christians is how much of our promises are now, we get to enjoy them now, and how many of them are not yet. Some we have to wait on. What are they? Or do we get them all now? Now, since we hate to wait, the temptation is to say that, well, we don't have to wait for anything. That we have it all now. It's all now we get to enjoy. And so we have some who say, well, we can always be healthy and wealthy if we just say the magic words. We can have any blessing we want right now. Now, few, I think, explicitly say that. It's like in so many words, promise it. But I think many actually suggest it, kind of leave you with that feeling that we can always have every good thing now, don't have to suffer anything now. Many Christians believe in what is called triumphalism, really more of an attitude than a doctrine. It's the feeling that we have already triumphed, that we're not going to think or deal with any problems we might encounter because we've triumphed over them. We just ignore them. We're going to celebrate all the good things we have. We're going to shout hallelujah if we feel like it, or we're going to feel superior to those who shout because we're reformed and so we're more sophisticated than that. We have triumph now. Triumphalism doesn't want to deal with those things that we have to wait on or that we have to suffer and weep over now. Now, logically consistent prosperity teaching, health and wealth gospel, is really, I think, pretty rare. I mean, I know there's some few prominent people out there that teach it, but it's kind of self-defeating after a while because it just doesn't work. That's the thing that stops a lot of the prosperity teaching. People try it and they confess their whatever they're healing and it doesn't work. They confess that they're millionaires and they still don't have it. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, one prominent prosperity teacher, Kenneth Copeland, he's going to blow the pandemic away. That was like in March, I think, of 2020. Well, guess what? It kept going. It didn't work. So it's self-defeating, but there's still a lot of the feeling of triumphalism. You can have your best life now. Sort of more ambiguous. They don't pin themselves down to specific promises, like COVID is going to disappear if he blows it away. No, they kind of ambiguous promise, you get your best life now, and that's pervasive today. It's a lot of that now. When here's triumphalism and the misapplication of 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 55. Oh, death, where is your victory? Oh, death, where is your sting? Triumph, right? Which is often quoted just like that, out of context, making that sound as if it is a present reality, as if it's something we have now. Death doesn't have a sting for us now. Death has no sting anymore for me, they imply. That's triumphalism. But read the verse just before that. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 54. When, in the future, when the time comes, the perishable puts on the imperishable, and the mortal puts on immortality. That is, when our bodies are resurrected, then shall come to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. And then comes that verse, oh, death, where is your sting? So it's a promise for something we have to wait for. We don't have it yet. Triumphalism takes what we have to wait for and makes it sound as if we have it now. Triumphalism in its various forms says this is paradise. We have it all right now. There's nothing left for you to wait on. And if you don't think this is paradise, then you either don't have the secret knowledge or the secret techniques to unleash paradise in your life, or maybe you're expecting something that will never come. You have unrealistic expectations. Your expectations are wrong. Well, either way, you do not have to wait. Stop waiting on anything, they'll say. We have or can have paradise now. But this is not paradise. You can't have it yet. People are still dying. 8 times in this chapter, his dead, my dead, your dead are mentioned. Death still has its sting. And if you haven't felt it yet, you will one day. Triumphalists will try to tell you that you don't have to feel that sting of death. But the picture here with Abraham in the first 2 verses, weeping, shows us that triumphalism is wrong. And if you think, well, he lived before Christ. Remember, Paul uses him in Romans 4. He is the model of the faithful, of the believer. And if he has to feel the sting of death, so will we. Well, here Abraham shows us that we have to wait. And we have to weep while we wait. God had promised that Abraham would inherit all that land from Egypt to the Euphrates River. When Lot separated from him, the Lord took him to a hilltop, told him to look around, all around 360 degrees, as far as he could see. It would all be his. It's a great promise. He believed it. And the Lord counted that faith as righteousness. That is, he was justified, declared right before God through faith alone. He gets all this land. And that sounds great. The land will all be his. But when Sarah dies, he's a foreigner, calls himself a sojourner. That means somebody who's a wanderer temporarily, without a square inch of land to his name. He doesn't even have a place to bury his wife. If he had bought into the lie that he doesn't have to wait for anything, if he was a naive triumphalist, his faith could have been shattered at that point, at the reality that he encounters here. His wife is dead, and he does not have a proper burial place. He could get bitter. I paid my tithe, God. I sacrificed my sons. You promised me land, and now I have nothing. But he knew he had to wait, and sometimes weep while waiting. And this is the first place in the Bible a man is mentioned weeping for the dead. It won't be the last, as the Lord Jesus himself wept at a funeral. the funeral of Lazarus, his friend. Now, some modern triumphalists look at that story, they're puzzled by it. Why did Jesus weep? They wonder. Doesn't make any sense to them in their system. Why was Jesus weeping? Surely he knows we've triumphed over death. I mean, he had just immediately said before he wept, I am the resurrection and the life. And then almost the very next thing he does as he weeps for the dead. Maybe he was weeping over their unbelief. That's what a lot of them say, a lot of triumphalists say. Oh, it's because they're unbelieving. They can have the triumph over death if they just had enough faith. And he's weeping that they don't have enough faith. But people were disbelieving him all through the Gospels. Why does he suddenly weep over it at Lazarus' tomb? You see, it's not at all a question. There's really no puzzle to it. Why Jesus wept when your view isn't distorted by triumphalism. Jesus wept because that's what we do now before death has lost its sting. We weep while we wait. But because we believe that Jesus is the resurrection and the life, our tears are mixed with hope, and so they lose some of their sting. Second, we purchase a piece of the promise, starting in verse 3. We don't have to wait on everything. In chapter 15, it says that God saw Abraham's faith. He's promised that land. God saw his faith, and he counted the faith as righteousness. That is, he was, again, justified through faith alone. He didn't have to wait for that. He didn't have to wait for his justification, for him being made right with God, for something other happening after his death. He had it now already. And here in verse 6, God's blessings on Abraham are so abundant that the Hittites call him a prince of God. That is a mighty prince. He's been blessed. He's got many of his blessings already. That's something he has not had to wait on. And so for us today, there are blessings for God we do not have to wait on. Justification, being made right with God. We don't have to wait on that. We can be declared right now, right at this moment, with God, in a good relationship with God through faith in Christ. We don't have to wait after we die, suffer thousands of years of purgatory, finally achieve it. We can have it now. Regeneration, being born again. These are now. We don't have to wait for them. And God can heal now. He can prosper now. He can give us companionship now, but sometimes we have to learn to wait. We might have a weakness in the body like Paul did. We have to persevere through. Called it a thorn in the flesh. Some lack something. We might have to lack something that we have to learn to wait through. That's what Paul was saying. I've learned I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He said, in abundance, yeah, I've learned to be content then. And in lack, that's the all things that he learned to do. And he learned it through waiting. Some loneliness we may have to occasionally wait out. Someone selling the snake oil of triumphalism is not going to tell you that. They'll try to tell you, you don't have to wait anything. You can have it now, instant, whatever it is you want. And when you encounter those problems, that lack, maybe a health problem, a lack of relationship problem, you'd be tempted to chuck it all because you don't want to wait. But someone who wants to make sure you make it through to the end will tell you, wait. And while you're waiting, purchase a piece of the promise. You want it now? Then invest. Give up something you have now to purchase a piece. Now, you won't get the whole thing, but some of it, invest now in getting some of what you are promised later. Like Abraham, we are promised freedom from sin. You won't get the whole thing now, but you can invest your time, your energy, your sacrifice, and you can get some of it now. Think about it. Abraham had been told that he will inherit all this land. And so he could demand it then and there. He could tell these Hittites, God's given me this promise. All this is mine by right. Now give me what's mine. But he knows he'll have to wait until the sins of the Amorites are complete. That is, until these people have sinned so much that God evicts them from the land. That will not be for another 400 years. That's a long time to wait, but that doesn't mean he gives up on the promise. He doesn't spiritualize it away, just as a way to cope with having to wait. Think like, well, I own the land, own it spiritually. I don't need to own it, any of it really in my life. And so I'll bury her any place I can borrow. No, he's willing to pay. Think about that. He's willing to pay here for something that he's been told by God that is his by right. But he's willing to pay, he's willing to purchase, to sacrifice, to get a piece for now of what he has promised fully later. Sometimes we have to sacrifice. We have to give, we have to discipline ourselves, exert ourselves to get a little piece of the blessings that we know we will eventually get in full. Here Abraham shows his faith by purchasing a piece of the promise. He's offered several times here to have free use of any tomb. You can get it for free. In verse 6, bury your dad in the choicest of our tombs. None of us will withhold from you the tomb, from you, his tomb, to hinder you from burying your dad. And then he mentions the specific tomb he wants, which belonged to a man named Ephron, the son of Zohar. Ephron emphatically offers to give it to him. Ephron sounds like a nice guy, doesn't he? In verse 11, 3 times Ephron says, I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it, in the sight of the sons of the people. In other words, in all this crowd here watching all this, I give it to you. All these witnesses will can attest. It's yours, Abraham, just take it. But the offer just to use a tomb means that once he's dead, once Abraham is dead and gone, the Hittites could say, well, we own that. Yeah, we let him use it. Well, we own it because he never bought it. He wants to have a full, unquestioned ownership of that tomb, that piece of land. And by doing that, he showed he had faith in the promise. Part of the promise was that the descendants would inherit all the land. Now, if he did not believe that, then the Hittites' free offer would have been good enough. He gets to bury her there, a nice place to bury Sarah, later a place for himself, because he's not far behind her. And then after that, it really doesn't matter, does it? Because Isaac and his descendants could probably be like him. They'll be nomads wandering off somewhere else, and they won't even be around to keep the tomb. So why bother thinking about what comes of it after that? That's as if he did not believe. Buying a piece of the promised land here means that he believes that he and his descendants will be here long term. That he believes God's promise. Like the previous chapter, the call to sacrifice Isaac, this, chapter 23, this seems like a kind of mundane story, doesn't it, compared to the rest of Genesis? I mean, creation and fall and flood, world war, all these things. And you think, you got a whole chapter on Abraham buying a piece of land? Why? But this is a test, just like with Isaac. The promise to Isaac was that he would be the one through whom all of Abraham's true offspring would come. If Abraham really believed that, then he could sacrifice him, trusting, well, that God, he has to raise him up because through Isaac my descendants will be named. Here, the test is whether he believes the promise about the land. That was the specific promise that God had made when he made a covenant with Abraham in chapter 15. Now, does Abraham believe it? Or will he continue thinking that his family will go on as before, wandering, just nomads, no really piece of land? Will it? If he believed in the promises that became the gospel, then this land would eventually be theirs. If he believes that, then he believes that his descendants will be settling here. They'll be here long term. And so because he believes that promise, he purchases a piece of the promise, a piece of that land, knowing, believing that his descendants will be there long term. He says with his money, an investment of the future for his family, that this land will be ours. He's not just buying a burial plot. He's making a statement about his future. He ties his family down here because God's told him, you're going to be here long term. Not to make myself a hero like Abraham, because I can't claim I got a great promise from God for land. This land will be yours. But we experienced something similar in February 2008. One group of people here told me to go, another to stay. And it appeared that we would be staying to gather a new church built on biblical principles. We also had to make a decision about where to live, just practically. Someone invited us to stay with them temporarily until we decided where to go. It was a generous invitation. And we began looking for places to rent temporary. We'll rent some house. But then it dawned on me, we need to make a statement with where we live that we're staying. Now, renting, living on other people's generosity, that kind of looks temporary, looks nomadic. It makes it look like we're not invested in a new church, like we're fly-by-night, ready to move on if things don't pan out. And so we concluded pretty quickly that we needed to buy. Now, most people don't buy a house immediately after they've been fired. We did, because we wanted to tell everyone we are staying. And Abraham here bought a piece of the promised land to tell everyone, this is our land. We're staying. He believed it was his land because he believed the promise of God. We're faced with the same choices today. Will we believe the gospel or just live on the scraps the world gives us? We have from God exceedingly great and precious promises. In our psalm today, Psalm 37, we're promised he will give you the desires of your heart. What greater promise could there be than that? You get the desire, what your heart desires, you get that. Now, some people think that we should claim those things, demand them. If we don't get it now, free and easy, never mind. I want it now, confess it, name it, claim it. But the best thing is to purchase a piece of the promise, with your life, with the way you spend your money, your time, your passions. You show that you really believe that the Lord will fulfill his promises. And so you invest yourself in getting maybe just a piece of it now, just a little bit of it now, because you are absolutely sure you'll get the whole thing eventually. You give or you spend your money for it. You invest your time, your prayers, your commitment to church to get a piece of what's promised. Well, verses 10 to 16, Abraham is purchasing a piece of the promise. He won't accept it as a gift from them. He wants an impeccable claim to the cave and the field of Machpelah. He wants a guarantee that his descendants will have that burial site. And so he asks for the value of the property. Ephron mentions what it's valued at, 400 shekels of silver. But he still offers to give it to Abraham for free in verse 15. Ephron probably expects some kind of counteroffer. How about 200? And they'll eventually settle on a price in the middle. Traditional bargaining. This is like the beginning. I think Ephron is thinking this is the beginning of haggling, right? I'll say 400 and he'll counteroffer and we'll settle on a price. But Abraham doesn't want to bargain. He wants an uncontested right to the land. No one should be able to say that he got it as a gift from them, or he borrowed it, or he rented it, or he tricked his way into it, he cheated to get it, or that he got a special break. There should be absolutely nothing to cast a shadow of a doubt on his purchase of the property. And so he gives Ephron the opening price, the high price that he stated, measuring out 400 shekels of silver. In verse 16, Abraham has purchased a piece of the promise. Finally, in that last paragraph, Abraham lives legally with land. The last paragraph shows us three important lessons of this piece of the promise. One is legality, second is legacy, and third, its location. This final paragraph serves to show that the purchase of the piece of the promise was perfectly legal. Legal. And it is, quite frankly, the whole paragraph is just a straightforward, rather dry account finalizing the deal over the land. We could even say, why is this even necessary? It's all implied on the account of bargaining over buying of the land. Right? If you say, I bought that house, we would think, okay, good. And then you gave a long story about how you went to where you go to the county clerk or whatever, the lawyer's office or someone, and finalize the deal. And I had to sign on this piece of paper here on this other people. Okay, I don't care. It's too much. I understand what you mean. Why are you giving me all these details about how you signed all these contracts to buy that house? That's what this will look like at the end. Right? You've already been told he's going to buy that piece of property, and then we're told that all he went through to officially get it. Well, why are we hearing this? But it's there for a purpose of telling us that now Abraham is invested in a piece of the land as property. As his property, it says in verse 20. He didn't have property before, now he does. He's tied down. Here we see the legal terminology and the detailed style we would expect of a firm and binding contract. Notice that this has all occurred at the end of verse 18 in the gate of the city. It was kind of the equivalent of our courthouse, or maybe a lawyer's office kind of thing, the place where official matters are settled, where witnesses were. Abraham legally, formally buys a plot of the land. And to get it all, he's going to have to wait until the Lord delivers it all to his descendants. We're sometimes going to have to wait until we inherit all the promises. But for now, we can occasionally, legally, properly, obtain some of the good things that the Lord has for us. Perhaps some wealth, some property, a marriage, some health, some success, the desires of our heart, some of them. Living now as children of the King in this present evil age, we must still obtain our promises legally, that is, properly, in the eyes of this society. Second, the legacy of the property. This one piece of the promise will be a legacy that binds his family to this land. That they own it, will stay in this family for centuries after this, showing them that, yes, we believe God's promise about this land. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, and Leah were all buried in that cave, that tomb. It tied these people to God's promise. It did that so strongly that Joseph made it clear that when he died, they're in Egypt, right? Joseph is getting old, he's about to die. He made them promise that they won't bury him here in Egypt because we're not from Egypt. Bury me in that tomb that Abraham bought 4 generations earlier. So his body was mummified and kept in a coffin in Egypt for 400 years until they could return. And then they buried him there. The legacy of Abraham's purchase of a piece of the promise was clear. They would be given all that land. They may have to wait centuries and even keep some of their dead, like Joseph, unburied for a while. But Abraham here has a piece of the land, showing he has faith in God's promise. Now, the legacy for us is not with that land in the Middle East. We don't need to worry so much about that, who the land belongs to. Some today still think that this promise of land here and other places in Genesis is all about the physical descendants of Abraham getting this physical land. It's all about real estate in the Middle East. And they so strongly believe that they base all their view of politics and the world events and theology on that. It's all about God promised them that land, and that's that. But the Old Testament tells us 7 times, interesting, repeats it 7 times, that God fulfilled, past tense, his promise to Abraham about the land. The descendants of Abraham did not have to wait forever for the land. Understand, they're not even waiting now for the land. They don't need to be waiting for the land. God fulfilled it already. They got it in Joshua's time, in David and Solomon's time. And so the position of the nation of Israel today, I believe, has nothing to do with the promise of land in Genesis here, since it has been fulfilled already. It's fulfilled already in the Old Testament. I believe the Jews today should have their land so they can protect themselves. Any nation needs to protect itself. They do especially, for various reasons, for practical reasons, I think. Not because it's fulfilling the promise here. What does it mean for us then? Those who have the faith of Abraham. Our legacy is what the land represents, what it was a type of, a place of peace to live safely on earth. Did you notice how many times, at least 3 times in Psalm 37, the meek or God's people, they will get land. That is, they'll have a place to live in peace and safety on earth. We have a promise of a new heaven and a new earth where there's no death and there's no tears, where we will no longer feel the sting of death. We can be a triumphalist and pretend that, well, this is it. And we'll finally lose our faith when it dawns on us it's not, when we're at some graveside or we're on a deathbed ourselves. Or we can learn the lesson of the legacy, that like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, we have to wait, but we wait certain that we have a piece of the promise, a piece of just a little piece of a promise that the Lord will give us in full. That the first piece of property Abraham owns is a grave tells us a lot about what we have to live with while we're waiting. We have to live in the midst of death. Now today, our culture, we hide death at nursing homes, hospices, and hospitals where few people see it. But we still live while we wait amid death. The triumphalist who wants to pretend, well, this is paradise, fails to comprehend the lesson. it's better to go to the house of mourning than the house of feasting. For this, death, is the end of all mankind, and the living will lay it to heart. In Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 2. Abraham has this entire land promised him, but he only gets a grave in his lifetime. That was his piece of the promise. We have exceedingly great and precious promises. We're promised our heart's desire. We have a glorious future. And yet there's one thing we can be sure of. We can be sure we will have to deal with graves. And if Jesus doesn't return yet, one day, one will be ours. Our test is whether we believe in the shadow of death, where Jesus was when he wept, between burials and the resurrection, whether we believe his words, I am the resurrection and the life. The legacy for us means that even when we weep while we wait, we weep not like those who have no hope. We believe the offspring of Abraham, Jesus our Lord. We believe that he brings resurrection and life. Finally, is the location. Well, it's in Canaan, the land promised by God in Machpelah, specifically next to Mamre. And you think these places, what does that mean? Well, Mamre is where Abraham built an altar in chapter 13, verse 18, and called on the name of the Lord, where revelation produced religion. It also, in chapter 18, verse 1, was where the Lord appeared to him and repeated the promise that he will have a son. He wants a place. He chooses this place, a location for the dead, for that tomb, a place to weep while he waits, within sight of the place, the location where God gave him his promises of life for the future. So he could weep over Sarah and then look up just to the west and see where God had revealed himself, where God had made promises to him. God had given him the gospel in advance. He could look up from that location and have his faith renewed, even while he weeps. Do you want it now? Triumph over death, resurrection, not only justification and regeneration, but you want perfection, glorification, health, and wealth now. Oh yeah, me too. So did Abraham. But his tears and ours will not be completely dried until the offspring, the Lord Jesus, brings the new earth, the regeneration of all things, until Sarah and Abraham come out of that tomb. You know, the one next to Mamre? Until Christ has put all his enemies under his feet. And then death will have totally lost its sting. Our tears won't be completely dried until then. But as we weep while we wait, those tears are mixed with hope. Because even now, for the believer, right now, here, in this location, while we're amid the dead, we can, like Abraham, we can look up and we can see we have a promise, and that soon death will have totally lost its sting. And for now, in this location right here, in the shadow of death, while we wait, even our tears lose some of their sting. Do you want that now? Then believe.